This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly Podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly Podcast. I'm Billy Atwell, Chief Communications Officer for the Diocese and your co-host. If you haven't already, if you haven't written a review or rated this podcast, please go to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening, and please contribute that. You can also sign up for our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org. That e-newsletter is more important now than ever. We're communicating important updates about the coronavirus and different changes to liturgies and Holy Week and so on. Go to arlingtondiocese.org to sign up. You can also follow Bishop Burbidge on Twitter. It's at Bishop Burbidge. Every day, he provides a short reflection on the gospel of that day. And we're getting great feedback about that, especially at this time where we're starting to feel a little bit isolated. You can also follow the diocese on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And you can send your questions for Bishop Burbidge at info@arlingtondiocese.org. Again, send your questions to info@arlingtondiocese.org. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, how you doing?
You're doing well, Billy. Thank you. I do want all of our listeners, all the faithful in the diocese, to know that my brother priest and I very much miss you, and you are in our daily thoughts and prayers. It's very important to know that Mass is being celebrated every day by our priests. We're remembering you and your families, especially at this time, asking God to give you strength and peace, and also that gift of perseverance during this time of uncertainty and certainly many unsettling days. So thoughts and prayers are with you, everyone.
Thank you, Bishop. And before we get into the main topics, in all of the chaos of the coronavirus, we don't want to miss the opportunity to highlight an important issue this month. I'm talking about April being Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Right. And so every day is Child Abuse Prevention Day. Every month is Child Abuse Prevention Month. But, you know, we have these kind of titles to heighten our awareness. So April is designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And you know, as our listeners know, I've addressed this on many podcasts, the important work of our Office of Victim Assistance and the Office of Child Protection. They are a wonderful team and staff and volunteers who are on the front lines of our ministry to protect the vulnerable, as well as helping victims in their healing. And as we know, since 2002 especially, so many policies, protocols, background checks, so much has been done to do everything we can to prevent this horrific abuse from ever occurring again. But we're never done. We always have to improve what we're doing, and we're always being so vigilant with that. So I do ask the faithful at this time. I know they have many prayer intentions, but to pray for all victims of child abuse. And again, I apologize to any such victim, especially if that abuse was on the part of a priest or the failure of a leader to prevent that. So again, so sorry for that. And you need to know that you are in our prayers. And in this diocese, we will continue to use every opportunity to highlight this issue of sexual abuse and ensure people that there's a zero tolerance policy. There's no priest in ministry who has done this. To remind people that anytime we get a report of abuse, whether it was 30, 50, 60 years ago, it doesn't matter. As soon as we hear the report, it goes immediately to the police, to the legal authorities.
Right.
And we offer counseling, certainly to those who've been abused, whether they're Catholic or not Catholic, whether the abuse was by a priest or not by a priest, and to their family members. And we have so many opportunities throughout the year for victims of abuse to participate in prayer and sessions. I'm privileged to attend some of them throughout the year, and so inspired by the faith of these wonderful people who are trying, with God's grace and the prayers and support of so many people to experience healing. So please, everyone, continue this special intention in your prayers.
And I know you mentioned that the child protection policy that we have really began nationally in 2002. That was the year that you were ordained, so you've benefited from having this playbook that has continued to evolve and improve over time. For those that want to learn more about what does that look like, what is the full extent of trainings for staff and volunteers, the background checks, fingerprinting, all of these things, all these policies and protocols that we have been implementing since 2002 and growing since then, go to arlingtondiocese.org and click on child protection. It's the very top of the page. It's an important part of what we do and how we operate in our schools schools, in our ministries, youth programs, anywhere in the diocese. Any diocesan entity has to abide by those. So if you want to learn more about them, again, go to arlingtondiocese.org and click on Child Protection at the top of the page. Bishop, as we've gone down this challenging road of carrying out ministry and even having to suspend public celebrations of the Mass, it seems like some people think that the church might be retreating at this time rather than being on the offensive and providing for the spiritual needs of God's people. As I see that, I have to think that you would disagree. But so what are your thoughts when you hear that kind of thing?
Well, sure. The public suspension of the public celebration of Masses is a source of great pain and sadness for our people, and certainly for me as bishop, and certainly for our priests. We never could have imagined that we would be in a time, in a moment that for the well-being and the safety and the health of all those in the community, that this is the prudent thing to do at this time, and it saddens all of us. But the church is doing anything but retreating. In fact, I am so deeply inspired by our diocese, what we're doing here and what is being done in the parishes to make sure that there's a spiritual connectivity at this time with the faithful. And so we're live streaming Masses here from the cathedral. We're live streaming Masses throughout the whole diocese.
Right.
The majority of our parishes are spiritually connected with the people every single day. Mass is being celebrated in this diocese for the intentions of our people, for the end of this pandemic. And I have heard many people, including those in my own family, who are used to going to daily Mass, saying that, at first this was, something they felt unbearable. But instead of resisting and fighting it, they surrendered. And they say now that I participate at home, as I watch the Mass, as the Word of God is proclaimed, as the homily is given, and then that beautiful opportunity to make a spiritual communion, to say, Lord, you know how much I desire you. You know how much I miss receiving you in the sacrament. I express that love. So it's a beautiful act of faith, an act of love, an act of charity. And then it's offered for specific intentions. First of all, for those who are suffering from this virus, those who have died, for the researchers and the experts who are trying to see us through this. So that's spiritual communion. And Billy, the other thing is we've kept our churches open, respectful of the guidelines that, no more than 10 people at a time and social distancing, but where people can come to church. The best advice that we're hearing is to stay at home at this time, especially throughout this month of April, but maybe for some people they need to go to church. So our doors are staying open. We've been hearing confession. So God's mercy is being celebrated. Our priests are attending to the sick and the dying. We are counseling and we're speaking. So many of our parishes are, speaking to the parishioners frequently throughout this time. And the works of charities. The works of charity and mercy are continuing by our diocesan wonderful Catholic Charities programs, and so many in our own parishes. And so I have to say, when I hear the church is retreating, I'm like, no, that's not true. Please don't say that. That is not true. And the other thing that we're hearing, and it's coming our way, so we have to be transparent here. There are some people who, even upon me saying all of this, are still pretty strong in expressing their opinions that we should not suspend the public celebration of Mass, and it's an imposition against our religious liberty or freedom.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd have to say very clearly there, and I hope our people know the many positions and stances I've taken, and along my brother bishops, of any intrusion on our religious freedom that's illegitimate and unfair. We're a strong person. But for medical experts and research and scientists to advise our leaders, telling us that if we want to stop, this suffering and so many people losing their lives in this pandemic, and to stop its spread, these are some things that we have to do. So I don't see that as a legitimate religious liberty issue.
Yeah.
The government and those who are advising our leaders are not trying to do this to suppress religious freedom, but rather to prevent further suffering, to prevent further deaths. And so I think it's so important for us to be faithful citizens, right? I am inspired and edified by how much people, are missing the celebration, public celebration of Mass, and their love for the Eucharist. I am so inspired. But we also have to be faithful, good, and prudent. Don't forget, prudence is the key virtue, right? Prudent citizens. And we can't forget two things I think is very, very important for people to remember right now. The one is that the Lord, our God, is not bound by anything as far as how he will bring to us his love and his mercy and his graces. And so the Lord is in our midst. He's coming to his people, even though our things are radically different than what we're accustomed to in ways that we wish it wasn't. That's not stopping the Lord from coming to us and coming into our hearts and speaking to us and helping us and sustaining us. So that is a very, very important thing for us to remember. And the other key thing is it is the same Lord who said to us, be compassionate, take care of one another, help those who are in need. And I think our following of the protocols that I have asked, for the people to follow in this diocese, based on my discernment and my prayerful wisdom at this time, is a way of being compassionate, because we're only being asked to do these things for the good, for the well-being, for the health of others. And it's not just what I want or what I feel like I deserve, but what is best for others. And that at this time is requiring a sacrifice.
It certainly is. And it's clear that religious institutions aren't the only ones targeted by this. I mean, entire industries are being economically crushed by these decisions. So this is a universal challenge for our nation and certainly for the world. So, and the first thing you talked about with how hard this is for you and the priest, I've seen that and getting to work with you and the priest. I see how, it's a prudent decision, but also how challenging and painful it is for you.
It's so painful right now. I'm not out in our parishes. I'm not out in our schools. I'm not with my brother priests. It's painful, but all of us are experiencing that on so many levels. But what we're hearing, and again, this is from experts, that this month especially, we have to be full force in doing what is right, so that God willing, someday, real soon, we are going to be all back together, and we will. God will see us through this.
Yeah, and the possible death toll in the next month is very frightening. So I think these are very reasonable and prudent. Bishop, we're coming up on one of the most unusual Holy Weeks, at least in my lifetime, probably yours as well. While in most years, my job is to encourage as many people to come to these masses as possible, to these liturgies, and to join us from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday. I've got a weird shift here where I'm promoting live streams and things instead. I know this is challenging for you, and a lot of people are feeling upset. What do you say to those who are feeling upset about the most holy of weeks to be experienced only through a live stream?
Yeah, I share your pain. I share your pain. It's for me, I'm so, I just love, as our faithful, I'm sure, love, the Palm Sunday, just as, here we go, Holy Week, Sacred Triduum, Easter, and now my cathedral is going to be empty. And it's so difficult. But as you know, I will be celebrating, as I always do every year from the cathedral, Palm Sunday, the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Thursday night, our Good Friday liturgy, our Easter Vigil, and Easter Sunday. And so for those who want to be connected, with the diocese and with me as their bishop, we will have those all live stream. We've expanded our Wi-Fi. We've worked so hard to give the people the best experience as possible. And I know, and our diocesan website points to this, that many of our pastors and priests are doing the same. So maybe people say, well, I'm going to participate live stream from my parish on Palm Sunday throughout the Holy Sacred Triduum and Easter. And so there's all kinds of options for you out there. But what I would suggest to all those who are listening is we call it Holy Week, but it isn't automatically Holy Week. We have to do our part to make it holy. So we have to treat this week as radically different than any other week. So what's going to change in your life?
That is such an interesting thought.
Yeah. So are we going to slow down a little bit? Are we going to be a little bit more prayerful? Are we going to meditate? Like, for example, on Palm Sunday, there's Jesus. There he is, walking into Jerusalem, ready to embrace his cross. Let's begin Palm Sunday saying, I'm going to make this a pilgrimage. I'm going to make a pilgrimage this week. I'm going to walk with Jesus. I'm going to walk in the footsteps of Jesus and be reminded of his great love for me. So begin Palm Sunday. In those days before the Sacred Triduum, which is Holy Thursday and Good Friday, Easter Vigil, stay prayerful, stay reflective. Maybe find a way to read the Passion of Christ that is proclaimed on Palm Sunday and Good Friday, slowly, meditatively, prayerfully. And then the Mass of the Lord's Supper. There we are, the celebration, the institution of the Holy Eucharist. The institution of the Holy Eucharist, and for all of us to make that beautiful spiritual communion of our love and desire for the Eucharist. And remember that the Mass of the Lord's Supper, we can't do it this year. We're not permitted to do it this year. This was even an instruction from Holy See. It's also that Mass where the celebrant washes the feet of some parishioners in imitation of Jesus. That's what Jesus did that night, the Last Supper. He got up from the table and he washed the feet of his disciples. And he said, now what I have done, so you are to do. We are to wash the feet of one another. How do we do that? Service, right? The willingness to forgive one another, the willingness to be available to others, to take care of those most vulnerable. So how do we imitate that Jesus? What I've done for you, so you must do. And then Good Friday, I suggest, dear friends, on that day, make sure a cross is very visible in your house that day. And if you're able to live stream the 3:00 service, the liturgy, bring to the Lord anything, the hardships, the sufferings that you're experiencing, especially at this time, united to his. And because we know whenever our sufferings are united to the Lord's, we will not be defeated. It will lead to glory. And then Easter Vigil and the Easter Sunday, we'll celebrate the great truth that, think about that. Jesus took on the darkness, the sin, the suffering, even the death, and he proved victorious. He was raised from the dead. He is alive and with us. That's the Easter joy and truths that we must celebrate. It's going to be, you're right, Billy, it's going to be a Holy Week. It's going to be an Easter like no others. But the truths of Holy Week, the truths of Easter are unchanged. No matter what time we're in or situation we're in, they're constant.
I love what you're saying about doing your part to make holy, because I'm imagining, usually my wife, we pack up the kids, we get in the car, we go, the sacredness is kind of done for us. We get there, the church is beautiful, it's set, it's ready.
Yeah.
All of that, the music, I kind of have to do that this year. Like that's on me to help create that environment in my household for my children. And so when you talk about surrendering, well, that's my way to surrender, is to put in that extra work to make sure it has the dignity that it deserves.
Right. That's a great idea.
I love that.
That's
idea.
a great
that's
idea.
Wonderful.
We always refer to the family into the home as the domestic church.
Right.
And right now in this given time, that there needs to be more vigor in the domestic church. And so, so make sure, just like we would do it in the churches throughout our diocese, make sure that your home looks like, it's Easter when that time comes.
That creates an opportunity in this environment. Right. Now you have an announcement that you've made just recently with the priests about Chrism Mass.
Oh yeah, so the Holy See gave us. We celebrate Chrism Mass 10:30 on Holy Thursday. Beautiful Mass, the Chrism Mass. It's the Mass in which, first of all, the priests, because it's Holy Thursday is the institution of the priesthood. The priests renew their priestly promises, and the people of God are asked to pray for them. So we still can do that. I've the Holy See gave us permission, since all the priests cannot be together, since the faithful cannot participate in it, the Chrism Mass can be celebrated at another time. You can't celebrate Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter at another time, but you can celebrate the Chrism Mass at another time. So we will suspend that until all the priests and the faithful can come together. Because at that Mass, as I said, the priests renew their promises. And also, that's a beautiful Mass when the sacred oils, the oils of the sick, the oils of the catechumen, and the sacred chrism, used for baptism and confirmation and holy orders, is consecrated. And so we will do that at a time when we're all together. I've asked the priest that day, we were scheduled to begin the Mass at 10:30. So I've asked the priest that day if we all could commit to making a holy hour beginning at 10:30. So maybe our listeners would like to know that from 10:30 to 11:30, the original date and time of the Chrism Mass, our priests will be in front of the Blessed Sacrament, praying for ourselves as priests, that we'll be faithful shepherds, and praying for the people of God. So maybe that's a good morning, especially between that time period, 10:30, 11:30. Maybe you, dear friends and your families, might in a special way find an opportunity to pray for your priests. We would be so grateful for that.
That's wonderful, and I am so looking forward to that Chrism Mass after this over, because it's so unifying.
I think
it's a perfect Mass to have right after all of this.
And I think that's what we're anticipating. That why not make the Chrism Mass that first time we all get together?
That's going to be great. We all look forward to that. So if you're listening, the full schedule of live streams for Holy Week, go to arlingtondiocese.org. We've got them there in the events section. And if you also click the button for live streams, you get the full schedule there. We're going to be posting them on Facebook and YouTube. But if you go to arlingtondiocese.org on the day of those events, we'll make it very easy. Right up there in the slider, you can click it and go right to the live stream. So again, which can be a Facebook and YouTube, or just go straight to arlingtondiocese.org. Bishop, what about ordinations to the priesthood and diaconate? We've gotten some questions about that.
Also, again, one of my favorite masses and liturgies of the year to give the church new deacons and new priests. So they're scheduled for the last Saturday in May and the first Saturday. I think it's the last Saturday in May and the first Saturday in June, I believe it is. But diaconate and priesthood. So right now we have not made any decision. Okay. Right now that they're scheduled to be on those dates.
So I just looked up real quick. May 30th, to be specific, May 30th is the ordination to transitional diaconate, and it's June 6th for the priesthood.
Right. Yeah. And so right now they're in place. If for some reason, as we go through this crisis, this pandemic, there's a need to reschedule it, we will let everyone know. But I really don't want to celebrate the ordinations until we're all together. Yeah. I don't want to do it like in a private ceremony or, one at a time or anything like that. They're all options. But our men to be ordained deacons and priests, this is what they've been waiting for, but they understand it, and they would prefer to. Let's do it when we're all together.
The family and friends can be with them and so on. Right. Now, you've been on TV a couple times as of late. We've gotten requests from the local media to be interviewing you about how the church is continuing to serve. Talk a little bit about what you've shared with the public about all these great things that are still happening.
Yeah, and the media that, with whom I have spoken have been, very, very good in that they're trying to bring out in this time of sadness and crisis, what are some of the good news things going on? What are some signs of hope here? So they turn to us. They turn to the Catholic Church, which is wonderful. And so the first thing I want to tell them is the Catholic Church is continuing its mission. Mm-hmm. We're celebrating Mass every day. We're finding opportunities to stay connected spiritually and pastorally with our people. The work of Catholic Charities, the work of mercy within our parishes are continuing. Those in need are being helped. Those in need of consolation and comfort spiritually are being also assisted. So I want them to know that the good works of our church, the ministries of our church, although looking different, are continuing. And it's very, very inspiring for others to see how present and visible our church is remaining throughout this time.
And I've heard you say, and I know I when I spoke with EWTN, I conveyed the same point. It's that we are so blessed to be in the position to help the way we are because donors and benefactors and volunteers have already invested to prepare us for this moment. The church is ready to deliver these services and these goods because of what's already been done before the crisis began.
And what a great point, Billy. And yeah, it gives me a really nice opportunity here to thank our parishioners, to thank the faithful for exactly what you just said, for their goodness, for their generosity, for their sacrifices this throughout the years. That even this time of hardship, we're able to continue our ministry. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and I know the ministries have really had to adapt. Christ House, they've served meals every night since 1974, and they're still doing it.
They're still doing
it. It's takeout. They're doing to-go meals, and Mother Mercy Medical Clinic's doing telemedicine. So they're adapting, but to create the right boundaries that we need, but still providing those services. I know you're so proud of all the work that they're doing. Any final thoughts, and then if you would close out with a prayer.
Just yesterday was the April the 2nd. Was the 15th anniversary of our beloved St. John Paul II.
Yeah, his death,
And like so many of the anniversary of his death. And like so many of our listeners, I have a great devotion to St. John Paul II. He was the Pope who named me a bishop in 2002. Right. So he taught priests and bishops how to be a good shepherd, and I asked for his help all the time. I recall words of his that I just think are so important for us to hear today. I just say what they are? These beautiful words of John Paul II. I plead with you, never, ever give up on hope. Never doubt, never tire, and never be discouraged. Be not afraid. And what St. John Paul II is saying is the source of our hope, even in the midst of crisis and darkness and very difficult times, is Jesus. And with Jesus in our midst and with us staying united to him, we find the source of our hope, even at this moment. So St. John Paul II, please pray for us. And Billy, I would like also to maybe conclude with the prayer to Jesus for healing and guidance that's on our diocesan webpage.
Absolutely.
Jesus, Son of God, you were sent by the Father to bear our weakness. Be with us in this time of crisis. Merciful Savior, heal and comfort the sick, so that with health restored they may give you praise. Divine Physician, accompany our caregivers, so that serving with patience they may heal wisely. Eternal Wisdom, guide our leaders, so that seeking remedies they may follow your light. Christ the Anointed, protect us in body and spirit, so that freed from harm we may be delivered from all affliction, who live and reign with God the Father in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. And through the intercession of Mary, our Mother, I ask God's blessings upon all of you, dear friends, so that together, even in this very, very moment, with trust and faith, we will walk humbly with our God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer gospel reflections each morning and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, and inspirational content by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.